Hello and welcome back to another edition of Random Videos. And today's topic is epic, or at least it's about epics. And you'll be, uh, it won't be surprising, but most of the time when we think of epics, we tend to think of them uh, through the prism of religion or through the prism of spirituality. And both these uh, perceptions aren't wrong or mistaken. It's just that our civilization has been so old and pretty much timeless that we tend to seek our gods and goddesses in our epics. But they are much more than that. They are not just a religious outlet, right? And that is very much pronounced in the places today where they keep up and they aren't buried. Obviously India is like the cradle of that civilization, but even if you read about Sri Lanka or Cambodia or Laos or Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, you'll see these epics constantly making their presence felt. So what does it tell you? That tells you that our understanding of epics might be limited, because if you ask someone who is fairly old, in the sense like over the age of 25 or maybe 30, you'll see that their understanding of epic, mostly Mahabharata and Ramayana, come from television. Whatever Ramanand Sagar and the Chopras told us, we thought that is it. And we rarely made an attempt to dig deeper, which is obviously something which can be rectified when you're older and you are in greater autonomy of your senses and rationality. But we rarely come across adults, grown-ups who are interested in having a deeper conversations about these epics. Most of the time, we try to be nostalgic about it by saying that I understood about Ramayana or Rama or Krishna or any of these mythological figures through Amar Chitrakatha, which sounds nice and heartwarming, but it lacks nuance. What happens is when we look at epics as just stories without any morality or legality attached to them, then they are just stories. And the problem with stories is we tend to look at them through a very a binary, that Rama is good and Ravana is bad. Uh, Sugriv is this and Bali is that. And that's not what epics uh, intend to do. Because when we notice how cross universal or multidimensional the stories were, where you see a character from Ramayana, for instance, Hanuman showing up in Mahabharata, it was like a huge crossover. Why do they do that? Or a character from Panchatantra showing up in Chataka. They do that because the writers who came up with these stories, they weren't interested in being the authors of those stories. They were more interested in being a modicum, a conduit of those stories. They were not at all interested in taking credit, which is very much a Western concept where every line will have a name attached to it. Like this line was written by whatever, like Plato, or this line was written by Luther, which is a concept almost non-existent, not only in Indian context but also in Chinese context. So I think it's more of a Oriental and Occidental way of looking at life and generations and civilizations, and which is why I find it very very intriguing when people who are closer to my age and they go back to Mahabharata and then they go through those podcasts and those videos and go through literatures and kind of uh, a deeper study of those stories which were fed to us through through books, comic strips, and television, obviously. And now we realize that, okay, uh, Ravana is not one-dimensional evil character. There is much more to him, and every character has flaws, and you understand why Rama, despite being a god, is a mortal and he has to be confined to the limits of mortality. And these nuances which are lost out on when you look at just stories is something you can catch up on when you study epics. And this is, I'm pretty sure this is not restricted only to Ramayana and Mahabharata. There are many more epics from other civilizations who have stood the test of time. In fact, I've started like getting deeper into this, and podcasts really help you. Like not really podcast, more of like audio books, which really help you, where you get to know that, okay, there were layers and layers, and how stories were connected and interconnected, and there is this root system going on behind each character development. And then you are mind blown that whoever came up with this knew exactly what they were doing. It was not an accident. It is just that because of the oral tradition of knowledge passed on through generations, through songs and verses, shlokas and whatnot, we've come to a point where if we don't study it, it's completely ignored. It's just gone. And I'm perfectly all right with somebody who has put in like 15 years into it, and listening to that person over just thinking that, I'll get to decide what the story means, which I feel will be very restrictive to my own development, or it won't really help me. So maybe to answer the question, how we should approach epics, or how we should understand these characters, these multidimensional characters, is to, first of all, broaden our mind, tell ourselves that these characters, even though they seemed godly, but at their base, they were all mortals. They were, tempted by the same, temptations that you and I, as humans, tend to oblige, and which makes them very, very mortal. So that is maybe one way to look at epics. And I'm pretty sure there are many more ways, but this is something which I, at my age right now, I have come to understand that my understanding previously was pretty limited. Now, when I understand why the Chiranjeevis are still apparently around, and how the yugas are going to, culminate into something which is beyond proportions, and all these stories which are so, it's like manifested out of proportions, right? It's beyond human imagination. No DC universe or Marvel universe, or even Game of Thrones, nobody can match this level of imagination. So I think it's for the amount of work that has been put in by so many nameless writers, the least that we can do is try to, if not appreciate, at least start going in that direction where we want to learn from scratch. That could be a good start. I don't know what are the benefits, but at least we'll get to know that those who walked before us, even if they were gods, they had the same issues like you and me. And maybe that's what made these epics so damn epic. Maybe that is one way to look at it. I'm pretty sure there are many more ways to look at it, but yeah, that is something I've concluded.